Was just being interviewed by a Yahoo Finance program. He said he thinks within 1 to 3 months that Republicans will throw in the towel in terms of their support for Trump. He said the Republicans on the Hill that he's been talking to are sick of Trump and his hold over them. So, look, I won't lie, Republicans often lie and gaslight us. But Scaramucci is a Republican. He made an interesting comment as well about how there's a felon in the White House and someone who's lawless, and that you take someone for a job, they make various promises about their ability to do a job, and then when you have nearly 3 years of data points that they can't do the job, you have to reevaluate. So he doesn't entirely want to admit how wrong he was in the first place in terms of the role he played in promoting Trump. But he does say now, he made some reference to decades of law breaking and lack of principles. So it's interesting that Scaramucci now admits that Trump has a history of a very poor relationship with the rule of law. And it shows the degree of racism that really has propelled Trump's rise to power, that someone so patently unqualified could so benefit from the Republican Party's backlash against having had an African-American president. That an unqualified criminal who could just present himself as white and on the surface successful could persuade people to overlook his multiple bankruptcies because of the implicit promise of his whiteness, that he would take care of other white people. And those people who thought they could divide America into a group of white people that they thought would gain political advantage from voting a terrible, terrible white person into power, that has jeopardized the safety of all Americans, as is made evident of Trump's prioritizing of his own personal needs, his own needs for being able to manipulate others and manipulate elections, that he would withhold for 7 weeks military aid that was meant to secure not only Ukraine against Russian attacks, but secure America from escalating Russian aggression. And that's why, to me, it's very important that Anthony Scaramucci gives this opinion that he thinks it'll all be, not all be over, because to my mind, Republicans need a solid lesson taught to them. There's so many people that need to be ousted from political life because of the degree to which they've betrayed the public interest in the US and, as a consequence, the world. The degree of treachery by Mitch McConnell, who's acted to sabotage American democracy in any way, shape or form that he could. The fact that so many Republicans have been on board with accepting money and donations from Russian-connected people, basically rubles, so that when Kevin McCarthy and Paul Ryan were videotaped on a hot mic joking that McCarthy thought that Putin pays 2 people, Dana Rohrabacher and Trump. And they laughed about it, and Paul Ryan said, "We keep it in the family. We keep it on the down low. That's how you know we're family." And so you can Google that. Washington Post have an article about it still, because it was their audio that taped that conversation. And they didn't go to the FBI and say, "Hey, we think our colleague Rohrabacher might be being paid by Vladimir Putin." They didn't go to the FBI because they didn't want the FBI scrutinizing their own patterns of donation too closely. They didn't want scrutiny of their own involvement with Russian influence. And they looked to Russia as the last significant white majority Western country, just as America was on the cusp of losing its white majority to become a nation of minority majority communities, so that there would potentially be more political power wielded by minorities. Not that there's a consistent voting bloc. Sometimes people from Latinx backgrounds vote for Republicans, quite often actually, because of religious motivations. People from Latin America who are very religious will vote for Republicans on the issue because of the compelling issue to them of abortion and women's bodily autonomy that they want to subvert, to church doctrine, be it Catholic or other. Anyway, I'm just stopping by to share that news quickly. Have I got volume? Let me check on another device if this is actually working. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you for bearing with me while I'm... Scaramucci says Trump is done. Let's see, it's got one like. Oh, yep, volume. Excellent, that's good to know. So we can feel hopeful. We do need to still feel wary because Trump will presumably still pull out whatever stops he can. And he does have access to a lot of things. And he's got a lot of bikers, a lot of brainwashed people, a lot of Second Amendment people. But hopefully the voice of decency in America is loud enough and forceful enough to speak out and say, you are not the majority. And your conceptions of Trump as an honorable man who acts to support America is not borne out by reality. This evidence is too strong, and people are not going to buy the gaslighting as much anymore from the Republican Party because too much evidence has amassed in the other corner. They've released the transcript, which is damning for Trump, and that's presumably the least terrible thing about the whistleblowers report. So they can't keep that whistleblower down, and he or she is a Trump-appointed person from their own administration. So, drama. Next time I'll use a tripod, I promise. But this was an emergency broadcast just to respond to the latest developments. Thank you and au revoir. Good night.